Good afternoon, everybody. How are you? It's a little bit after 5 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Pacific. I told you I had something special planned, and I do. And I have the just I words are hard to put to this. It's just somebody that I've really liked, really admired since I'm a kid, and looked at and went, "Wow, that I like this guy." I mean, it's a cool guy. So it brings me great pleasure to introduce the one, the only, a living legend, Mr. Tom Arnold.
Oh boy, you overshot with that introduction. I'll tell you that, Brian.
No, not to me.
Well, I appreciate that, and it's good to be here. And I think it's interesting how did we meet? How did we meet?
Well, I can give you the quick version.
Yeah.
And then I can give you the quick version.
Yeah.
The quick version. I messaged you on Cameo.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Cameo is a fantastic platform for celebrities and anybody for that matter, depending on what field you're in, to allow themselves to have access.
Right.
You've lived that celebrity life, and I'm sure there are plenty of times where you put up many walls to keep yourself away from the public, and I can understand that.
Yeah.
But I think it as our culture evolves, I think it's important that we need to see our celebrities. They're people. Like, you're a human being. You've done amazing things.
Yeah.
You've done amazing things. You've done some messed up things in your life. Everybody has, and I think that's important, especially with what's going on in our life, in our world right now. And that's one of the reasons I'm doing this.
Oh yeah.
The blunt news has, more than just a double entendre. It means many different things.
Okay. Well, the way I recall it is that you reached out to me via Cameo. Cameo is a place where celebrities or actors, athletes, whatever, will make personalized videos for people. I really enjoy doing it, and I've really loved it during the pandemic because it's just me and my kids here, and I feel like I'm communicating with adults, and it's great. And so anybody could request a Cameo, be very specific if they want, or just and I cover a wide swath of things I do on there. Sometimes people are everything from somebody's in the middle of cancer treatments to somebody wants to stop drinking alcohol or whatever it is, or just somebody wants me to roast their friends and their so I do enjoy it and appreciate it. There's another one called, Sasha, what's that called? Emmy? The other site that's like EMM Memmy, EMME, and that's a new one I'm doing. I don't know if it's out of Canada or whatever, Canada, but whatever. And I do some sometimes in England with Thriller or Triller, but I really enjoy it, and I really then I think you can text with people and stuff. But you stood out because first of all, I said I would. This is my first Facebook Live thing I've ever done, and you were just very kind and your requests, and I said, well, I got to figure this out. We got to. But once I tell somebody I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. Then Sasha, my assistant here, who we do a podcast together too, said, you're doing the blunt news. I go, what? What is that? She goes, that's Brian's thing. And I go, okay, there you go. I've never done the blunt news either. So I thought, well, we'll have some fun,
That's just it. Have some fun, talk a little bit. You're honestly fulfilling a lifelong dream I've had. I just always saw you as, I mean, like I don't know you personally,
right.
But I just always saw you as just a cool guy, somebody who's been through some good shit and some bad shit.
Yeah. Well, that's I am, but I'm sure
you can appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, I think that I try to be as honest as possible with people in general, because and publicly, because I think that there's some things along the way that have happened to me or to somebody else that will connect with people,
Mhm.
and open up a discussion. I've always tried to talk about things that whether it be child abuse or my life or my addictions or my divorces or whatever, because you'd be surprised how many people have that in common with me. Those kind of things to have in common with people, I
Mhm.
think, are the best things. There's a lot of actors, there's a lot of comedians, but to have those intimate things in common with people, it
Mhm.
helps me too,
Mhm.
because I do I try to do as much service work as I can, and again, that's a selfish thing because I get so much out of it. So I appreciate what you got going here. I'm
I
trying to remember
can
how
I
long
can
you
I can mirror that same thing.
yeah.
I've been doing this for about a year,
Yeah.
and I started it honestly, right smack in the middle of the pandemic, and I said, I've always wanted to talk to people and help people, and it was a lot of self realizations for me with addictions, recovery, men's mental health.
Hmm.
Um, you know, uh, Taking stock, part
Right,
of the 12 steps that everybody does,
right, right. Yeah, of course.
inventory. And I realized there's really, even the stuff that's out there is, even the 12-step programs, they're
Yeah,
flawed. It's
right.
flawed. There's missing pieces to it.
Well, I mean, there's if you're just if you are seeking help and it's free, and that if you really genuinely work the steps and do that, but it doesn't. If you have a mental illness, if you have other issues, there's I really am a big proponent of the 12-step programs, and there's different ones, but the mental health issue, that's a separate issue. And I think that a lot of times people they say, well, I'm just going to stop drinking. I'm going to do these 12 steps. I'm going to get my inventory and my resentments and do this thing and have a sponsor. And for people with mental health issues, that's not enough, because that
Exactly.
will lead to that's just making you clear enough to deal with your mental health issues. That's always
Then there's the process.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, I, because Alcoholics Anonymous, you don't talk about it publicly. Let me just say that I can't think of a better organization. Started in the '30s by these two gentlemen in Akron, Ohio, and it's worldwide and it's free. And there's just they don't do publicity. They don't, it's such a great thing that these guys did for humanity.
Mhm.
And because it's crazy, they don't make money. They don't, and people all over the world, if you're working, I was in Rome working the last 3 or 4 of the last 6 months, and you could find people there. And the way I used to find people that had stuff in common with me was to buy drugs, look for drugs, and but it's the same thing. You look for the sobriety, or people that have a story, or just to make a connection.
Mhm.
And so I agree that there's more. You need to do more, and I like the way you put it so eloquently.
Thank you. Thank you. So that was, I couldn't have planned that better if we had rehearsed this, but
Yeah.
that was a perfect segue for this question I've been I got for you.
Yes.
So lately I have been focusing on men's mental health. I
Hmm.
talked to my crew here,
Hmm.
and the stigmas attached to it.
Hmm.
Now, during your growth and development and the things, you don't have to get too personal.
All right.
When did you finally understand how, what, I don't know a better word or a better phrase for it, but toxic masculinity,
Hmm.
how, because I can look back now and say, well, it wasn't necessarily my dad, but
Hmm.
it was other male figures around me that sort of helped mold that, so it was beaten into
Right.
my
Oh,
head.
yes. Yes. Well, I'm from Matumble, Iowa, so it's a small farming town in southeast Iowa. I worked at the meatpacking plant at Hormel for 3 years out of high school on the kill floor of a meatpacking plant, which is,
Wow.
you know,
I've seen a video of that.
yeah, yeah.
Oh
Well,
boy.
it's like we slaughtered 6,000 pigs a day, and it's people in my town, it's a factory town. My dad, again, like yours, wasn't so much, but I think that's where toxic masculinity started because I knew if I stayed there and stayed in it, I would be killed or kill somebody or, you know, um, it's I also, now that I have a 8-year-old son, you really and a 5-year-old daughter, but you're more thoughtful about this. Now, people have taken the toxic masculinity title, and you'll see people on right wing news media say they're destroying men and boys, and that's the opposite,
Mhm.
you know. Uh, um, but growing up, you had to fight the older kids. You had to show that lay your man claim down a lot. And I just can't imagine my son. My son's a big kid. He's a head taller than everybody in school. I was a big kid. I can't imagine him going through that. And I think that I pay a lot of attention to their schooling, and it doesn't. I mean, it's you know it's potentially there, and you could potentially get influenced by other people outside of there. But I want my son to be healthy and happy and treat people with respect and be treated with respect.
Right.
And I don't feel I have anything to prove to anybody. I've done all that. I've fought. I've a million times. I went through all that with, especially during my alcoholism. There was also a lot of toxic. I was arrested for fighting the police 3 times in my town. That's another story. But there's just like, and it's not just with sports but there's with drinking. I started drinking when I was 12, hardcore, because you had to hang out with the other kids and it's something my mother. I was raised by a single father, very nice man, until I was 10, and then he married the next door neighbor, and that didn't work out well for me. But I eventually went to live. Well, first I went to live with my grandma Dottie, who's wonderful, and my grandpa DB, who was great. There wasn't any of that BS around there. I mean, he was grabby, but I realized that the first day I moved in, I think I was 12 years old, and moved in with my grandma. I'd come home from school with a black eye, and not a big deal. It happens a lot. That happened a lot those days, and my grandma I was eating dinner and buried her face in her hands and started weeping. And I honestly didn't know what she was weeping about. My grandpa was like, what's going on? Or what's going on with you? And it's because I had a black eye. And she see, and I realized at that moment, I'm not going to be able to live here. They're great people, but they're going to see a lot of black eyes. They're going to see a lot of stuff like that. I think that I also, the people in my town that really had toxic masculinity. A lot of them ended up in prison, and they certainly didn't go farther than our town. And again, when you're a little boy, you kind of look up to these guys because they're badasses, and
Mhm.
they can kick your ass. But then when you get a certain age too, and this isn't, you realize, oh no, I can kick their asses. I'm big now, but I don't need this. You know, and all the booze I drank. I moved in with my mom when I was 15, and she's like, it's on. My mom's a alcoholic. She did drugs. That's why I moved in there, so I could grow my freaking hair and drink beer, and party and not have any supervision. And that's when you're 15 and you're an adult world, I had to fight my sixth of seventh stepfather. My seventh stepfather was the captain of the police force, and his name was Delmer, and his dad Elmer was the police commission. This is not a joke, but it was always, I think that a survival at that time, I always felt like I gotta man up. I gotta, there's, and if you see there, my sister's documentary series, Queen of Meth, starts May 7th on Discovery Plus. I'm in it because they do a lot about our childhood. My younger sister became a massive methamphetamine dealer, dealing with the Mexican cartel, and really kind of brought the business to the Midwest. And with, she did 2 terms in prison. It's a big, and the toxic masculinity around that, because her husband was a biker. Her first husband beat her up, and I went over. He was 23. My mom married. This is crazy. My mom, who was a lunatic. I knew she was a lunatic, by the way. I didn't assume she was my mom. I mean, when you're a kid, little boy, and you don't have a mom, you kind of romanticize what that would be like. I remember looking at magazines and seeing the ads where the mother is putting the stereotypical great mother is baking cookies, and I like cookies anyway. But I knew she wasn't like a mom, and she would say, "Hey, I'm not maternal, but I will. I'm not going to tell you I love you, but I will tap you on the knee once in a while, and that means I love you." And so I had no expectations when I moved in with her that that my mom was going to be mothered, but my sister, who had a different experience, because my dad made a mistake. He never said anything negative about our mom, but when she would come over and be crazy and knock down the Christmas tree and do crazy and bring a drunk, my dad made a mistake. He never said, "Okay, what you just saw, that wasn't okay. I know
Right.
you love your mom, of course, and I wouldn't act like this, and I wouldn't talk like that, and I don't want anybody of you acting like that, and you deserve better." Just a brief break, and he didn't do that. It's something I do with my kids. I've been through they're just ongoing custody stuff and whatever, and their mom has done some very unfortunate things in their presence. She called the cops a lot. She would, act, like a Karen. She'd come beat on the house. She'd beat on, what I do is I say, the last time I went to pick him up at the meeting place, and she wouldn't let him out of the car, and so I just, and then I came back home, and I'm sitting back in my office with Sasha. You got to cut the videos of all these things. That's what one thing, in my profession, it's been very effective. I have a lot of cameras. I have 21 cameras in and out of the house, and you think is to keep the bad guys out, but really is to document everything I do, and so that I can show the police. Well, what does she say happened? Well, here's the video of what she, and then they lead her away. But again, it's unfortunate because it's in front of my kids. So last time she wouldn't let him out of the car, and I came back here. I don't even mess around with it to get into any. I don't want to get in any argument in front of the kids. I'm just not going to do that. So I come back here, and Sasha, my assistant, and I are back here in the office cutting the film, and then all of a sudden, the kids show up and like walk in all the way back through here, and there was nobody in the main house there. And she dropped them off in front of the street, which is the second terrible thing to do. She didn't. There was no adult, She dropped them off on the street here, and I have a nice street, and people are nice, but
Just in case.
I don't drop them off at her street. I make sure they're all the way in, and so it just escalates. But I think that the way I would have handled this, if I didn't have the experience, would have been different. But anyway, my dad never said it. But so my sister, she had a distorted view of reality. Like my mom was a god to her, and and parents that aren't raising the kids do tend to idolize them a bit and put them on a pedestal, because the one raising the kids has to be the disciplinarian, It has to be, and by that I mean make rules. I don't mean spanking. I don't do.
Right. Just
I
set the
mean,
boundaries.
yeah, so they can be this hero that comes in crazy. And so what happened later in life when I was 15, I moved in with my mom and her husband, and then Lori, my sister, who done her life had been she'd done so well. You know, she was great in school, great in athlete, and very smart. And then she moved in at 14, and she started dating a guy that was 23, and his divorce was in the paper or whatever. He was divorced from a 15-year-old. So this is all you need to know about this guy. He's a scumbag, and she thought he was a badass. You know, that male. You know, she was attracted to that. He beat the crap out of her. I had to go over to her place and get her out of there. And the guy is a serial pedophile. I mean, he was cheating on her with a 12-year-old. Now, the way my sister looks at it is, and my mom made her marry this guy. She said, break up with him, or I'm going to have him arrested, or you have to marry him. And, she's like, well, of course I'm going to marry him. I'm 14. I think I'm in love. So my mom drove her and that guy to Missouri and just got wasted and made her marry this asshole. And so, I found out about it, and I tried to stop. I called my dad. We got to get on the highway. I'm not sure if she's going to Lancaster or wherever. And it didn't happen. And then my mom came home wasted, of course, with my Kenny, her husband, who's not a fan of Tom Arnold. I was not a fan of his. And my sister, they dropped her off in her new apartment with her rapist. And then from that point on, and she's still, during the documentary, you can see her talking about my mother in a different way that I speak about her. But she was very attracted to toxic masculinity, and her boyfriends were big, large biker dudes. So all of them, and she was tough too, but that's how she got into the meth business. She married a biker, the president of the Grim Reaper motorcycle gang, or as I call them, the Grimy Raper motorcycle gang. And so it was all around her were these bikers who were just thought they were, and it was all this faux badass stuff. I mean, some were murderers, of course. And my ex brother-in-law had been a Green Beret. A lot of guys had come back from Vietnam or whatever, and they were fucked up, but they also were really good.
More toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
Serve some time.
I knew. I hated that. I knew I hated toxic masculinity because I fucking hated these guys. And many a time, and also because my sister was my little sister, but but I also had to, because of the toxic masculinity, prove myself with these guys. Like you had to be able to, and
you couldn't try talking or reasoning because that wasn't considered masculine. No. You had to argue a fight.
I yelled.
In some way, win or lose.
I also felt like these guys are idiots. Their whole thing is, hey, we could kill you. Like that just is bullshit to me. That's bullshit. That's bullshit whether it's those guys or a cop. And we had a lot of large cops back there, so if you fought them, it never goes good right fighting a cop. I'm just going to tell you,
right.
but because of my insecurity, I had to do that, and also I'd be very drunk, and also they're assholes. But I realized that this is, and there was no name for it, obviously, toxic masculinity, but I could see people getting very hurt, and I could see that my sister had jumped full into this world, and it's on her because she liked it. I mean, her husband now, fiance, is another giant biker, but seems mellow. He gets, and my sister's a handful, but I could see, there are people that I grew up with that just stayed in that. There's a lot of people die where I'm from too, fighting or showing off on their motorcycles or, jumping off of things. And
a lot of alcohol is involved in it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm glad that people talk about it. I don't let the right wing steal it.
Hmm.
And because they're like, oh, 'cause I get into arguments on Twitter with these guys that are like, yeah, they're taking away the guns from our kids. It's just a good idea.
How is that a bad thing?
You
How is
know,
that a bad?
no,
My 10-year-old doesn't need an AK-47.
no. But I'll say this: my dad had a rifle from the Korean War, right,
Mhm.
and it had a cartridge. And because he knew as soon as I think he knew boys are going to find that, but he put one lockdown over at this part of the house, and then the cartridge locked down here. And seriously, the second he left for work, every day, my brothers and I were looking for it. And I finally got it out, found it, put it all together, and went
Yeah.
out in the street and just started firing it off. And I remember somebody called my dad at the office, and he came wheeling in there hot. And he wasn't like he was not a violent man in any way, but that
Yeah.
and that was not a good day for
Yeah,
me.
my
That
my
day
father would have
by the
would have
hair.
kicked
You
my.
know, and I will say this to my dad. He passed away 5 years ago, and where I'm from, at some point in your teens, you square up with your dad. That's just how it goes, and you learn awful. And my dad never punched me, but when I challenged him, and he just said, "Okay," he kept doing this. I just want to see, and just by doing that into my chin, he was just measuring it, his punch, and it hurt. It hurt just to put his fist there, and so it didn't happen. But I had four younger brothers, and there's some shit that I did to them, and whoever was that
Yeah.
I regret and have made amends for, just the constant fucking hazing, and especially when you do farm work, just the constant. There's funny stuff you do, like making them ride horses that aren't broken, and just because that's or tricks, but also I also felt like I'm kind of the parent here, so you guys, and I know that's not what my younger brothers or my younger sisters needed,
Right.
and is from this idea that, oh, I have to be so tough, and then I have to show them, I have to be the one that comes down on all these guys, and that's I know now that is, it caused problems with it's hard also when I'm Tom Arnold now, so that's they have to deal with all their friends going, hey. I bet he'd give you $1 million, which I don't have to, or so I'm aware of it. I think that we are who we are. Some people are more masculine. To me, being masculine is taking care of my kids,
Mhm.
protecting my kids, being honest, in all my affairs. And but I will say this: if I have to, I can still kick somebody's ass. And I'm also not going to take. I'm not going to be picked on like I
Yeah,
was.
you're not gonna let yourself
Absolutely
be
not.
put into that situation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I
So
agree with you. So
yeah,
let
go
me
ahead.
ask you,
Yeah.
what what would your advice be for a guy who's finally come to terms, oh shit, my father growing up was drunk, was this, and all my uncles, all my brothers, and a guy who wants to say, hey, listen, this is a bad cycle. I don't want my kids to grow up like this.
Mhm.
What would your advice be?
Well, if the fact that he's asking that question is excellent. I mean, there's a lot of things I could do. With my mom, my sister ends up starting this huge meth thing, and then my 8-year-old nephew was in the house. So all the crazy shit my mom did, and my 8-year-old nephew was in the house when the DEA raided twice, and they came in with battery grabs, and because she had a lot of armed biker, there was a lot of people guarding her farm, and that was in front of my nephew, and she said to him. The second time when they took them away, the first time they just came in and took all their guns and drugs and money, and it was to set up this second big raid. And she said to my nephew, Josh, I'll be back. And he did. he didn't see her for 8 years, and his dad died in prison in Leavenworth, and so she, repeated the cycle. She never gave him drugs like our mom, but there's the same
Same
kind
thing.
of
Yeah.
cycle, and they're together now, and and she's an addict, and that was her thing. She never admitted she was an addict. I'm a businesswoman, she would say. It's hard for women in this business. I'm making a name. But I think that that's a good thing. First of all, when you have a child, I mean, my experience, when my son was born, he was born first. You just, there's something inside of you that just changes. And you also realize,
Change.
oh, I can't believe it. He's so perfect, but I was perfect like that too. And it's a little startling. And with my son, as he got older, one of the things I did when I first got sober back in 1989 was, and I've had relapses on different things, and I had a motorcycle wreck. I broke my back. I was 19 years sober, and I always said I didn't like opioids. Well, I did like opioids, so I had to start over. And but he was born, and then as he starts to get older, you do flash on yourself as a kid. I mean, and then specific bad things. My mom, who was sloppy, drunks are sloppy with their kids, had put me with a pedophile. I know I'm talking a lot of, my town is not full of pedophiles, I want to say, but this older guy, and he raped me. And I realized when I was sober, I've got to find this guy, and I've got to confront it in a healthy way.
Right.
Because I didn't want to kill him, but I wanted to find him, and he'd moved on. My brothers are very helpful in this way, and we found him. He was a big businessman now, and he had a big religious leader in Des Moines, the big city. And so we set up a thing. I worked with my therapist what to say that wouldn't get me arrested, and so I planned it all. Just very, I'm here to give you back the painted shame you caused me as a kid. But if you try to do that to me now, I'd break your fucking neck. But so it came to the day, and I was kind of thinking my perfect. So I flew to Iowa, and I found out he was about to adopt his fourth son too, and so I went to his place of business, nice place. The receptionist recognizes me. Oh my God, it's Tom Arnold. It's Iowa, And I said, well, I'm here to see Terry. I'm an old friend. And she said, I'm going to call him and give him a heads up. I go, don't, let me surprise him. Where's his office? And she must have called him because he came out of the office and he's at the end of this hall. And this is as badass as it gets. And this is real. And he starts walking towards me, and I start doing my, hey, I'm here to give you back. That I was also thinking this dude is he's big. I hadn't seen him in a while, obviously, but I give my spiel to him, and he comes around and puts his finger on my chest, said, "Your memories are wrong." And for a moment, it took me back to being in that room where he used to take me off of the side porch of the house, and I could smell it, and I could smell the laundry on the clothesline in his house. And he scared me for a second, but then I quickly rallied that I'm not 4, 5, 6. I am a man, a grown man, and so I took his hand and bent it back under his neck and said, "Did you hear me?" I said, "If you did try to do that again, I'd break your fucking neck." And so by now, all his employees had come out in the hall. They witnessed that
Good
because
for
I
you.
was there. And then I turned around, and because I saw when he was up on me, he was the tough. And then when I got him, we were eyeball to eyeball, and he knew this is going to be bad. And so I walked out and felt like I released so much off of me, so much baggage. And I'll be honest, I didn't want to be at Walmart in my town, and have this guy behind me say, "Hey, see that famous guy? Yeah, I fucked him." I just didn't want. I go, I'm going to go to him. We're going to deal with this shit. And then, I went right over across the street to the state capital of Iowa. And Terry Branstad was our governor at that time, Republican. And he just finished working for the Trump administration as a Chinese ambassador. So he's been around a while. But I went right in his office, and I said, "Hey, this fucking guy is about to adopt his fourth kid. You got to stop it. The cops say the statute of limitations is bullshit. He goes, I go, you got to stop it. He's like, whoa, Tom, are you out of your? You did not say that to me, because what you just asked me to do is a federal offense. So you got to leave. You got to leave, man, and don't make, you know. And then about, I was very disappointed, but you know, I was going to figure out things, but
They all have to cover their own ass. That's
well,
the
4 days
problem.
later, 4 days later, the adoption. My brother called me. My brother is very, you know, he knows how to get things done. My brother Chris, but he called me and said the adoption fell through. There's a paperwork snafu, and they are going to adopt this kid. And then what I did is I put posters, kid high. I had my brother, my farmhands go up there every couple days and put posters, kid high, with the guy's face, name, address, and crimes, 6 blocks around his house. And I really felt like, well, now I've done it all. Now he's lost his business. He's not that church guy. You know, he can't hurt any more boy, knock on wood, they always could. But I feel I've done what I could do. And then years later, when my son was born, you know, I look at him, and as he's growing and getting to that age, it's shocking. It's shocking, and it's a big deal, because you go, I think in the back of your mind, anybody that's been sexually, not anybody, but some people have been sexually assaulted or so, you know, raped or whatever. In the back of their minds, there's voice that says, well, maybe I was a bad kid. Maybe
I deserved it.
Ugly. Maybe I was something. And even though I felt I dealt with it, I had that feeling. But when I saw my son, and my son was so beautiful and so young at that age, and it became an issue for me again. And you know, I started taking, because I am my own doctor apparently, but I started taking benzos and you know, like Ativan and Xanax, because I couldn't sleep, and I was having, and then I ended up back in another rehab 4 years ago for that, and I started trauma therapy there, which I'd never done, and it's a lifesaver. So you know, you got to deal with the trauma. You really do have to deal with the trauma from your past, and you got to deal with it in an appropriate way. But otherwise, it's that telltale heart that's beating underneath the board. Yeah, at least that's how my sobriety works. If I deal with all of this stuff,
right. And I appreciate you sharing that with me. And one of the things I've done in this past year was I had, you know, only a few people that I considered my best friends in my life knew, and that's less than a handful.
Mm-hmm.
But at 5 years old, I was molested by a babysitter.
Mm-hmm.
She was a female,
mm-hmm.
which, you know, in any normal young boy's mind, this is the ultimate fantasy. You know, you got your babysitter, and you could do something with your babysitter.
Right.
But that's the toxic masculinity that was beaten into my head. And for so many years, it was like, yeah, it's cool. And then I started to realize this. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with me? Like,
yeah, no, and you're right. And you know, you know, because you're a 5-year-old boy, and that it's not, none of it's okay. And it's so weird. It's so weird to be touched. And you know, I remember when I finally figured out, I didn't know I didn't know how you had sex or how you made babies. And then my dad bought me a book. That's his way of doing stuff, you know. And I read it, and I thought you had to have something else, or you went to Target and you bought something. But when I realized, you do it by this sexual act, and I was very disappointed, because I thought, I've already done that. Yeah, I've already done that. Yeah, but you know, your story there's kids, and then there's adults and older people, and even other kids. Molesting kids is awful, and abusing the sadistic way, you know, that they do things, and there's a lot of power involved. There was, you know, I thought my guy would say, he lived right across the street, and say, you know, everybody has guns where I'm from. Say, if you tell anybody, I'm gonna. And my dad would pull up every day and pull up with my little sister and little brother. He goes, I'm gonna shoot all of them. And I felt like, well, I'm not gonna say anything, because all I got is my dad, you know. And so, you know, and also, you're 4 or 5, 6 years old. You're you know, so that I'm
You're
glad
at the
that,
mercy of who's ever
yeah,
there.
yeah. And also people should talk about it because it puts a fucking heads up out there. And I'm sure, I'm just going through this thing with Jerry Falwell Jr. And they, what they call the pool boys, who I've gotten to know these young men, and what he and his wife, they're predators. They're not unlike Jeffrey Epstein. There's 100 of them, and you think, oh, that's cool. I get to have sex with, and believe me, if a rich guy came to the Fontainebleau Hotel and I worked there as a pool attendant, and he goes, hey, me and my wife want to party. My wife wants to, and she's attractive, and here's a bunch of booze and money. I'd be like, if I was 19 years older, I'd be like, I'm in. I'm in
Yeah,
all forever.
when you're 18, 19, 20
Yeah,
years old,
yeah.
you can't think it through.
Right, and then they went on to psychological stuff, and I think somebody in their business, because they're in the religion business, they're like Jesus or God, to the people around them, and so Giancarlo Granda, who I know the best, his family was like, oh my God, you're hanging out with the Falwells, this, oh, they're amazing, and then one day he talked about. He was being intimidated. Jerry made a video of him and his wife, who was going to send to his girlfriend, and they don't believe you because how it's like a priest. They don't do that, and so he had a real. He's still and he's speaking out about it now because I said to him, you need to be the voice and the face of this. All the other quote unquote pool boys,
Yeah.
because the mainstream media is like, oh well, he's a he's a scammer. He's but the psychological stuff that did to him, and then other young men started speaking out too, and women, and then people at the university, and so I think that there are things that you must be talked about, and particularly with the kid stuff, and how'd that go for you when you started sharing that?
I got a lot of feedback from my fans, my listeners, some old friends. And one of the old friends that I told, she messaged me privately, and she said, I'm interested to see if you ever find her again, if you ever talk to her. Now I did. I found her. I put a post up from like our old neighborhood, and I guess if someone recognized her name so she was 11 years older than me. So she was 16 and I was 5.
Mhm.
And even today, I'm not angry at her. I know I can be, and I know I could be, I should be,
Mhm.
but to me, that just means that somebody did this to her.
Mhm.
Who did
Yeah,
this to her in order for her? How did that happen in her
yeah,
mind?
yeah. But you still don't let them off the hook. You still have to deal with what
I'm
felt
not.
like you.
It's
Yeah.
different though. She's a. I mean, look at the world we're living in. She's a woman.
Mhm.
I mean, it's not like I'm a giant, but I'm like 6'1". I'm
Mhm.
240 pounds. I'm not fat, but I have a
Mhm.
belly. But I guess people have told me I can be intimidating.
Mhm.
I can't go up to a woman and just confront her. That makes me the bad guy.
Mhm.
So what do I do?
Mhm. Well, what's helped me in my sobriety, especially when I first got sober. I just I so much like you have to do it for yourself. You
Hmm.
have to do it. You're like, I look at the guy in the mirror like fuck that guy, because but I took a picture of myself when I was 4, and anytime I was feeling like that, I go, well, this is me too, and I fucking love this kid.
Hmm.
And so this kid deserves to be sober, happy, healthy. He deserves a good life. So I'm going to fight for him.
Right.
And it is your situation is different.
Mm.
And mine where the guy was, continuing his criminal enterprise, and I also had a deal where when my sister got busted for meth, and it was a big story, and I went to court and was helping her. A woman came up and said, because I'd been on Oprah, and I said, well, I talked about child abuse, and I said, I'm not going to say the guy's name, but I'm going to call him Terry. And they put it out, and that was his name. So a woman came up to me and said, I just want you to know I'm married to his brother. Dennis, and he did it to him too. And that sort of that there was props for me to confront the guy. There was a lot of, but it was
Yeah.
it was something that because I could have, if I didn't think he was a threat, continuing threat to, I might have done it a different way. But once I knew that he's ongoing and adopting,
Yeah.
could be boys or girls, whatever. But he specifically, I was like, well, I got to do this. I have to. I don't have a choice. I got to. This
Right.
is what I'm here for, and so I have to speak. And then 30 other guys came forward after this whole thing. 30 other kids, and it did give me a chance to go back to my old neighborhood and talk to people that still live there. And I will say this: the boys did not want to talk about it, and their sisters did.
Because they were always told not to.
Well, it's also like there's this. It's people are like, well, that's gay. Well, it's not gay. It's rape is not gay or straight or
Rape is rape.
Yeah, and but I think that it is I'm sure that something happened to that woman. If you have peace with it, and you've dealt with it, and you've
on the fence.
Yeah,
I'm on the fence.
Yeah, well, then I would confront it in the best way possible, but I would make sure that she knew, and that would be, I mean that seems like the best thing you do. Now, probably she's going to deny it. Probably she's going to say your memories are wrong or whatever.
Right.
Hi guys, but you have to just know. I'm for my 5-year-old self. I'm going to do this, and that and then
somebody else told me too. Like, try to imagine your 5-year-old self then looking at you, going,
yeah,
yeah,
what are you going to do for me?
What are you going to do for me?
Nobody in my life was protecting me when I was that age. Nobody was looking out for me, and I mean, I can remember being locked in that room and thinking, God, I hope my dad shows up here. I hope he breaks that door down, or I hope Superman breaks it down, because that's how I thought.
Mm-hmm.
And my son was born 50 years to the day when the first time that happened. But my thinking was, there's somebody out there that's got to help me, and it turned out to be my son 50 years later, because it really has helped me to deal with that.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but it just from one dad to another.
Yeah.
I have 5 kids. I'll give you the quick version. Yeah, I didn't learn my lesson, Tom.
Yeah. No, I love it. No, I
didn't learn my lesson, Tom.
I love it. I love 5 kids.
So, and I guess it seems like we have one more thing in common. I'll make it quick, but my oldest is going to be 21, and went through a lot of custody issues with his mother, and I haven't actually seen him in 7 years.
Mm.
And as the father, you could understand.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I can understand that. That is horrible. Maybe we'll talk privately. I've given you some tips.
I would love that.
I don't have the tips.
Would love that. Yeah, I don't want to keep you too long. I won't.
Yeah, I know. Sasha's waving at me. Well, I got to say something else too. But I'd be happy to discuss. I mean, it'll cost. The Sharon Stone told me 2 years ago. She's been helping me, because she's been through it, the custody stuff, and she, you could read her book, and she's been like she's a very, very good friend of mine, and I've known her. I was friends with her dad. I'm friends.
She always seems like a sweetheart too.
She is, unless but don't. She's tough too.
You don't cross her. That's the kind of impression.
A lot of people have, but she's great. But she said, we sat down. We met over with Polo Lounge there, and she said, just know, I know who your ex-wife is. I know the situation. Know this: it's going to cost you every dime you have. And I said, no, that just doesn't seem possible. And she said, hey, what's more important, your money or getting custody of your kids?
Yeah.
And so, it costs you, and you got to, if you're dealing with somebody that's that just, and you also think, I mean, I have a lot of, I feel a lot of pain, the 7 years from your son, but people are always like, well, they'll figure it out. when they're, you know,
That
older.
doesn't always happen.
Yeah.
And that's what
Oh,
I'm terrified of.
I became a dad at 54. Like, I don't know, I'll be dad for real. So I'm going to take every day,
Mhm.
one day at a time with these kids. Everything,
Yeah.
it's the most important thing I do. It's the best. It's the most fun. But I'm not going to take anything for granted.
Mhm.
And so I appreciate you sharing that with me. I just say one thing before I go. My buddy John Earhart, I used to do. If there's a show with redneck in the title on CMT Country Music Television, I've hosted it. My Big Redneck Vacation, Rehab, Family, whatever, all the shows. Now, the producer of that show, we became friends. He put out this wonderful documentary about a month ago called Weed. Here, Sasha, can you hold this up? Weediatrics. It's called Weediatrics, and it's about this group of underground parents who are risking jail time, not to mention custody of their kids, in order to give them medical marijuana. These are tragic cases. These kids have seizure. They're
Mhm.
beating themselves up, and they have to travel out of state and basically smuggle it back
Smuggle
in.
it in just
Tried
to take care of
everything.
the kids.
And let
Yeah.
me tell you something. This works. And I will tell you, if my kid was in this condition, I would fucking do anything.
Mhm.
And so it's a really, yeah, of course. In Israel, are you Jewish?
I am.
Yeah, I am too. So in Israel, I'll show you
You can't tell, Tom?
no, I can tell.
I can't hide this
Very
thing,
Jewish.
Tom.
You look like my rabbi. Uh, but in Israel, they're so far ahead on the tech because they know the medicine. What I don't know if you call it marijuana, but they know that you turn that into medicine.
It's
And I think
medicinal,
here, because we
100%.
have all the prescription drug companies, people would rather loop these kids up on that. Anyway, check it out if you get a chance. And
Definitely.
your viewers, it's really well done. These are
Yeah, I will add all the credentials in, all the websites, everywhere to look for it. I'll edit it into this as
okay.
well. Yeah.
Sasha,
But
yeah.
I
Anyway,
got one thing
yeah,
I just wanted
yeah,
to say to you, and I'll let you go. And I
okay,
obviously I hope I can speak to you again.
yeah,
But so the question I've wanted to ask you for a while.
yeah.
Okay, this is just a personal thing as a fan, as a Tom Arnold fan.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and it hit me. I got me emotional,
Mm-hmm.
but I wanted to call it to other people's attention.
Mm-hmm.
So when you did the roast
Mm-hmm.
of Roseanne,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so we had the whole conversation. I didn't bring her up once,
Yeah.
but
No, that's fine. You
it's
can
not
do
it's
it.
not about her. It's about
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
Okay. When you did the roast of her, and you got a couple of zings, and it was good. Um, but at the end, your last minute and a half,
yeah,
you looked at her. You got very, you got real. I saw the real Tom Arnold, and you
yeah.
said, Johnny Carson gave you the thumbs up. He put you on the couch, and you've earned that, and no one could ever take that away
Mm-hmm.
from you. And then you looked at her and you said, but thank you for
Mm-hmm.
letting me sit on your couch.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for
Oh, wow.
giving me a
Yeah.
thumbs up. And that was real for me. Like there was the real Tom Arnold opening up his heart and saying, okay, our marriage didn't work. We both made mistakes, but
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate the time we had together.
Yeah.
That
Well,
meant a lot to me as a person.
yeah. Well, it was real, and I didn't know I was doing the roast until the night before because I couldn't. I know she'd called, left a message, and first she said, "I'd like you to be a waiter, dress like waiter, serve me a drink, and then just leave."
That
That'll
would
be
have been
hilarious.
funny. That would have
I,
been
I know, but I said I'm not gonna. No, no. And then, well, how about you come out, you roast everybody else on the dais,
right.
and not to me, and you just turn to me and give me a fist bump, and I said, by now the producer Joel Gallen is calling me. I said, that's dumb. If I do this roast and don't roast Roseanne, we haven't been in the same room for 18 years. Then it's not. I'm not doing it. And then they called the next night. You can do anything you want because they needed me to do it. And then we had to. It was a Saturday. They shot it, and Friday, my lawyer called and said, "You guys have mutual restraining orders against each other and of complicated settlement agreement where." If she says something about your penis, she has to pay 50 cents. If you say something about her body, and so they had to undo all that. It took all night, people working in New York, just so we could be in the same
Miracle.
room. And, I was nervous. They had me hidden a trailer back there, and I still didn't know if she was, because, she's mercurial, and I didn't know if it was not going to work. And so when I came out of stage, I felt a gasp because I knew they were going to make fun of me no matter if I was there or not, which is great. But I felt a gas like what Jane Lynch said, and now somebody that wants to Tom Arnold, and the audience laughed, and then they saw it was me, and I could feel, Anthony Jeselnik was on the dais, and I just look at people's mouths like this is a real moment.
It's about to go down.
Yeah, I also was worried. I said, "Don't ask me last minute because I want to have good jokes. I don't want to do." But it did. It was last minute, and I think I called Jen Kirkman a great comedian, but I realized I've got 18 jokes in my head at all times for the 18 years. So I thought, the best roasts are where the old Dean Martin roast or whatever. And you have a moment because I knew her better than anybody at that room.
Yeah.
And we were friends for a long time before we were a couple. And then I said that thing, and I remember in 1985 watching Johnny Carson and seeing my friend go on there, who, it meant a lot. She did a couple of jokes I'd written for, but he killed, and he sat her down. I worshiped Johnny Carson, and then she had a career and amazing. So yeah, that was a real moment. And then I went backstage, and she stopped the taping and came back to talk to me for a second and said, "I really appreciate that. That's very happy." And then they said, "We need a picture of you two." And she's like, "Oh, I have to go into the restroom first." And then I was like, "Well, I guess she doesn't want a picture." So I left, and they had a plane for me to fly to Nashville to do one of my redneck shows. And then, but when I was on the way to the airport, the woman that I was with at the time, I said, "Yeah, she didn't want a picture. I wasn't going to wait around." And she said, "Are you stupid? No ex-wife is going to not go look at herself in the mirror before she takes a picture."
Before she takes a picture.
Yeah. I thought she just didn't want to do it. And so, and she actually wrote me, "Where'd you go?" I go, "I had to," but it was also good because it ended well and everything went well. I thought, I'm going to get the fuck out of here before something gets screwed up.
Now,
So
are you guys like simpatico? Like, could you sit down and have a beer together, or just not going to happen?
No, I mean, who knows in life, but no, we have too many different
points of view,
political views. But I would do it in the right circumstance. People ask me that, but I don't think she'd be interested in doing that, to be honest. So anyway, well, you never know. Life is never. I've been divorced 4 times. People say, "You better not get married again." Who knows where life takes you? I'm just happy being where I am. But thank you very much.
No, Tom, honest to God, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Made a dream of mine come true. I've always just thought you were just this cool guy. And yeah, I could ask you all the stereotypical Hollywood questions, but I wanted to get to know Tom.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
It was a great chat. Thank you very much.
I'll shoot you guys an email, and hopefully we can stay in touch. That'd be nice.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
All right, buddy. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.